In my former video, I was talking about tension and intensity and why these two things are so different. And so I was also speaking about very quickly, actually, about the peak points, because we have one peak point for the intensity and one peak point for the tension. So what I'm going to do today in this video is just taking two short pieces and just trying to show you that these 2 points can be exactly in the same spot. So peak point of intensity and peak point of tension can just be almost the same, one into the other, so to say. And in some other cases, they can be far apart, because one thing, as I said, is the intensity itself, and one thing is the tension, the interior strength, given by all the possible oppositions that the composer writes in the score. And, of course, we have to notice that when we have, for instance, the intensity and tension just not coincident, but they are on the opposite. For instance, you have a lot of tension, but just a few intensity, and this is the second case that I will show, because you have the peak point of the tension, so you have the maximum tension, but maybe you have just a few intensity. And so in this case you are obtaining even more tension, not intensity, but you are having more tension. Why? Because if intensity and tension go together, they are paired, well, this is of course let's say in phase, it's normal. But when they are on the opposite, tension and less intensity, or intensity but less tension, with this, which is another opposition, by the way, you get another insert of tension. So let's go to the first example. These are Chopin preludes, and this is number 7. So now in this case you will notice immediately that the 2 peak points are exactly coincident, just in the same spot. As you can see, when we climb up to with the climax to that moment of, it's like a reprise in a way, because it goes like the beginning, it repeats itself, but it's just going where? Here. And we reach this point where everything is new. We have a new harmony. First time that we hear this, which is of course a secondary dominant, and it's the first time that we go that high, never before. And of course Chopin also writes crescendo, rinforzando, so we need everything. The beginning is piano, dolce, una corda. So this is actually the peak point of intensity, there's no doubt about it, but it's also the peak point of tension. And it's very easy to see, because after this you go for the final resolution, etc., dominant and tonic. So in this case, the 2 peak points are exactly exactly coincident. But now let's see another example where, as I said, these 2 points are far apart, and I'm taking here the prelude number 20. So here, in this case, we have 3 lines. I'm actually playing only the first 2, and the first line is in fortissimo, almost everywhere, and the second line is in piano. Etc. So, absolutely no doubt that the peak point of intensity is right at the end of the first line. It goes also with a crescendo written by Chopin, and it goes, of course, there's absolutely no doubt. And we also have here, which is the it's also the highest note here, the B on the penultimum chord. The B, A, G, the B is the highest note. So we have this situation where the intensity is peaking. But is that the peak point of tension of the whole piece? Well, not actually. Because what happens right after that very strong and powerful moment cadencing on the G here? What happens? Well, we just are back to the C minor, so the tonality is just the same. But what happens? We have a huge contrast between the forte fortissimo here in the end and the piano. So this is a huge contrast between the 2 moments, which shows us that the tension, I mean, the piece has still something to give. You know, it has not given everything, and so now we are just looking for an end in a way, you know, looking for the final resolution. We have something to say. I mean, Chopin had still something to say, and of course he starts with this piano here in C minor, and what happens in the next 3 bars is just the descending bass, which is chromatic, and so it's just, you know, gives some fire to this very calm and relaxed, apparently relaxed situation. And the tonality is still C minor, is not changing, is not modulating everywhere, he's just there. And once again, in the 3rd bar, he's once again going from dominant to tonic here in C minor, but in the last bar, something happens. Look, we have this 6th grade here, the 1st chord, and then the 2nd chord. Oh, what is that? Well, this is something tricky by Chopin, because he's in a way putting this in a weird way. He's using the what is called the sesta napoletana, Napolitan chord, but well, it is a little strange because he's not using it in the classical way, which is in sesta, in sixth, so with the first rivolto, in the primo rivolto, in first rivolto. But he's using in the fundamental state, you know, like this, which is a, you know, kind of more romantic way to just begin to break those chains, you know, from classicism. But it's still something very chromatic, like a sesta napoletana is, comparing to the tonic. And so after that, there's the fifth going to first, you know, dominant and tonic. So in that very moment, he uses for the very first time this chord, which is a very important and chromatic and characteristic chord, which gives us a special sound to the whole thing. And he's not just going around like he did before the C minor, but he's just giving us something new that we never heard before. And thanks to this one, we are just as far as we possibly could from the original C minor. And then, of course, we go back to that and we just repeat it, even more piano, like pianissimo, and then it goes to the end because it repeats itself in the same way. So you can actually see that we have the intensity, but the tension as still, you know,